the karakia. Me unui tātou, e te atua, tēnei au, tēnei mātou. He kai he kai kaunahera, he ka wenga, I ngā whakatonga, I ngā tikanga. Ki utu, ki tai, ki rewa, ai ngā iwi katoa o whanganui. Haumi e, hui e, tai ki e. Amen. Right, well, welcome back, day 3. I remember a little while ago, we had 2 days scheduled, and I wished for 3.
Recording in progress.
That meant that our community were engaged, and we not only have 3, but we've got another one next week as well. So, well done to everyone around the table. We've got some big days. We've had some big days, and so I really appreciate all your attentive effort, and also to the community that have come in as well to engage in this process. Council officers for all the work that goes on behind the scenes. We'll do more thank yous at the end of this, but it's democracy in action. All right, so we're about a minute early, so why not get started? I'll invite. So do we have any declarations or apologies? Yes. Put your microphone on. Oh, it doesn't go. Okay, Charlie's an apology between 2 and 2:30. Okay.
And I'll be leaving at the break.
Okay.
At 4:40.
Okay.
And I just want to. Can you ask?
All right.
Frivolity.
Yes, and Philippa.
There's always going to be a court.
I declare a conflict around the Aramaho Riverbank Enhancement Project.
Excuse me, sorry, can we just have attention? Sorry, Philippa.
I'm going to step away from the table for the Aramaho Riverbank Enhancement Project.
Okay.
Submission.
Yep.
Thank you.
I'll just reiterate, I need to, unfortunately, depart at 5 p.m.
Sure, no problem. Okay, noted. Thank you. All right, so I'll invite Phil Haynes. Welcome, Phil. So you just need to press the right-hand button. Yes, of the speaker. So if you can either stand up or you can sit down. So
Yeah.
it's the speaker. That's the sit-down one. If you want to stand up, that's the stand-up one over there.
I'll sit down. Since
Yeah,
you're
great.
sat down.
No problem. Yeah, welcome.
Thank you for the time. Are we working, do I click through this to get the presentation up, or have you got it all on your screens?
So do you have Bridget's just coming now? So
Yeah, or it's page 360 on the published notes.
Okay. Great, got it.
Cool, thank you. It's always nice to have something as a background. Hey, thank you for the time. I've put my hand up to come and speak to you as possibly one of the many voices who are looking for more than just the basics. And I think it's worth really just understanding that we're in an environment that's a little bit different. Everybody probably recognises that. But don't only just do the basics. It's very important to do the basics well, absolutely. And you'll get lots of avenues of that kind of input, from social media through to the submissions you've had about doing things better, doing things well, making more efficiency, more productivity, etc. But I'm cautioning you, if possible, on not going too far with that. We're not looking for a Scrooge as a community. We as a community will probably be asking more often, what else can be done? How can we do this? How can we fit this in? As opposed to stop, don't do that anymore, don't do that anymore. You'll get both sets of that voices, but I'm really here to extol the former, because I'm going to bastardise a comment about taxes here. There's only 2 things in life that are sure, taxes and death. Well, there's only 2 things in life that are sure in government, which is that you're always wrong, so you're never going to be able to please everybody. And if you only think there's one way, you're definitely wrong. So I'd kind of hope that. Now, what I'm really trying to say is don't fall for that. Don't fall for that only one way. Don't fall for that being put in that place of being wrong, and ask for permission to do more. And I think you're doing the right thing at the right time. Giving people options and asking in these submissions and in the long-term plan has been a great way of doing it. You're not alone in that in terms of councils. I see quite a lot of similarity between councils. But what I'd say is go one step further. Wanganui is a very varied community. Living in Wanganui is a grounding experience for anybody, and I think that's one of the reasons it produces a lot of ideas and creativity. So I'm going to put in front of you a couple of examples of where people have asked for more, and I think it's your responsibility to do a bit more, not just the basics. You'll be familiar with things like round up at the checkout. You know, do you want to round up that contribution? Do you want to contribute more? That kind of thing. A good example would be McDonald's. You go to McDonald's and they'll ask you if you want to round it up to the nearest dollar to give some to the Ronald McDonald charity. No local government seems to do that. Whereas when you venture into the business domain, or you venture into politics, or even you venture into things like energy, where there's a certain amount of license, if you like, to ask your client base or customers to contribute more, then you do. If you're in politics, here's an example of a Green Party asking for donations. There's an example of Mercury asking, do you want to contribute to a charity? And I would, at this stage, perhaps remind everybody that for the last 2 or 3 years, things like mayoral funds have been quite prominent. Quite a lot has been done with them. And they are good examples of asking for more with a reason. And so having a purpose makes a difference. Thames Coromandel, for example, raised over $1 million into their mayoral disaster fund. Kaipara, over 500,000. Tararua, just over 300,000. So there is capacity for us as a community to contribute more. And one of the ways perhaps is to think about that early payment discount as an opportunity as well, and maybe offer to people, you can pay it all at once. At that point you could say, use the IT, use the payment methods to say, do you actually want to contribute that as an additional voluntary donation? So by asking for more, there are perhaps some other alternatives to getting some other revenues. There's a key to that, and I've just listed this. I don't intend to go through it, but the way you ask for it and what you ask for it makes a big difference. The mayoral disaster funds that got the most, have a look at those. They did well, but they asked for a reason, and people gave because there was a reason. They could relate to the story. So what I'd say is do that. Let's explore that as an additional revenue opportunity, because you're going to get lots of suggestions over the last 2 days and the next 2 days as to how you could spend more, or how you could spend what you get, or better use of the rates. My perspective on it would, our community is very diverse. There is the opportunity to join in, and it does buy a high level of community input. And I've added another submission, which is thinking about park and rides in the long-term plan. I don't expect you to put that in place in the long-term plan. It's a big ask, but I would request that we have a look at these and think about that as a possible, or as a pilot ready for the next long-term plan, because you're never going to get central funding for that type of thing unless it's in your plan. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you very much for it's a refreshing and different approach that you've come to us for. So appreciate that. I talk about the balancing affordability with aspiration. Yeah. So I think that's where you're heading. And so my question is, do you, if that's the phrase I use, does that resonate with you, like finding affordability for now?
It does from a change perspective, and that's my professional specialisation. And in change, one person's change is do it the same. One person's tradition is change to them. So you always got that different perspective. So balancing what you do with what you've got, as opposed to trying to get more to achieve more, is always that. You know, that's why, as councils and as political parties and as government, you have a mix of people, so that it's not one person doing it. Inherently, having a committee or a council chamber is about that balance. You know, you're not deciding just one person to do it. Yeah, it does resonate. I would say that we are one of the most diverse communities I've ever come across in New Zealand, and I've been to just about every provincial town for one reason or another. So I think we perhaps have the duty of care over that, what we do necessarily as the basics, more than most.
Okay. Great. Now we've got some other questions for you. So first one is Councillor Kate.
Thank you. Really appreciate your submission, and I really like the way you presented the theory and backed it up with examples that are actually working. And perhaps my question's going to touch on what you've just talked about, diverse community. You opened with a comment saying about how grounding it is to live in Whanganui. Would you like to kind of expand on that?
I think there's such a variety demographically, there's such a variety of cultures as well, compared to most. And I think that's, if you look inwards, it's easy to look at Whanganui and feel like it's a melting pot of problems or so forth, but actually it's a melting pot of opportunity because that diversity means that you can't walk away from it. It's always there. Anything, and that's one of the reasons I mentioned that, anything you do, you're going to be wrong. You can't please everybody. Wanganui probably is going to feel that more than any other town just because of that diversity. We've got rural business, we've got urban business, we've got a low socioeconomic, we've got low household income. So we've got a massive mix. We've also got a massive wide region and area. So by that nature and our road structure and how much of a web it is out into the countryside, we're going to have a lot of different types of people. Even around this room, if you look at the council representation, it's very diverse. It's all ages. It's quite a melting pot. So I think, yeah, that's particularly relevant around Wanganui. There'll be other towns similar, but I see that as quite a differential.
Okay, go to Councillor Michael.
Thank you. In terms of asking for more, would you advise being very specific, i.e. allowing people to say, I'm adding more to parks, I'm adding more to sport, I'm adding more to tech?
I think there's some simplistic ways you can approach it first, and I'm absolutely sure that however you start this type of thing, it'll evolve to where it wants to be. You've got a whole raft of solutions and propositions and opportunities given to you. If you create a short list as to what that type of donation or contribution might be used for, A, you're going to filter people's minds into what it's going to achieve, but B, you might just make people go the other way and say, actually, I would contribute, but I'll only do it for this. And at that point, you might also generate some contributors to particular projects or particular aspects.
Yep.
So I think, yes, having a reason is key. Having a mix of options is probably better than just putting them out and saying, you know, press button 1, 2, 3, 4 for project 1, 2, 3, 4. If you can get that sophisticated, it might be a good way of teasing people into it. And it might give you some more opportunity of ownership. It also might highlight those that want to be involved in that, who might contribute time and effort and services, not just money.
Nice, thank you.
Great. Yeah, look, Robert had a very quick question.
Yeah. Phil, you mentioned a voluntary optional fund in your submission. That seems a damn good idea. So can you, the time you've got, can you expand on that, please?
I suppose if you think about pensions and provisions for the future, people put away a certain amount, and often they've got opportunity to either put away more or put away the minimum. And in the past, a private pension would have termed that as an additional voluntary contribution. You know, these are all different words for the same thing, which is donations and giving more for a particular reason.
Okay, sorry, Phil, that's time, I'm afraid. Yeah, you've gone a bit over, but no, that's good. Thank you very much. No, it's not your fault. You've done very well. Thank you very much for all the effort.
All right.
Thank you. Yeah. Invite Alistair Fraser. Welcome, Alistair. You're not officially next, but the other person hasn't turned up, so you are next. No, you are. Yeah. Go for it. No, you're on. Yeah. You're not next on the run sheet, but you're going to come earlier. Is that okay with you? Yeah.
That's fine. Yeah.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And I'll sit down rather than stand up because you're all sitting down.
Okay. The floor is yours.
And use my iPad, if I may. So I'm going to refer to my written talk today, and which I've distributed. You may have it, and so I'll be referring to that. So kia ora koutou, Mayor Andrew, Chair Kate and councillors. The submission is made by me as Drury Hill resident and as Wanganui Digital Inclusion Ambassador for the Digital Inclusion Alliance Aotearoa. One of my most special mementos is a pair of beautiful black glass-blown whispers by our legend artist Katie Brown. They were presented to me in 2013 by people I worked with, including actually 2 Whanganui District Councillors, and are inscribed Maverick Pioneer for Computers and Homes in Whanganui. So over 10 years on, it's wonderful to sit in front of you and observe the huge positive transformation that the building of our ultra-fast fibre network infrastructure and the implementation of digital technologies and systems has made to our district and our GDP. Is this the reason you've decided to abandon our digital strategy 2019? That everyone can do their own thing now, adequately now, without your intervention? And is this an expense we no longer need to pay? We get that for the next few years. The imperative is we need to save money and everyone needs to contribute. And these are difficult times for the council to balance the books. And we totally appreciate your endeavours and the democratic way that you've made to present the best possible long-term plan. We've made specific comments about digital inclusion and raised issues we request you to consider in our written submission, which you know you will all have read. And we're grateful to Jo Buckingham for her assistance in writing the descriptions about our digital inclusion and digital equity sector and the impacts of neglecting to support it. So you have many matters to consider for our long-term plan, and digital inclusion is just one of these. However, whilst the other 3 pillars of our digital strategy 2019 are able to survive and even thrive on their own without a council-led strategy, digital inclusion cannot. Council-led membership and stimulation for digital inclusion is necessary so that initiatives have a strong label of their integrity and surety for other investors such as central government and larger corporate enterprises. So today we make 3 points which we'd like you to remember about digital inclusion interventions. Firstly, as well as for compelling social wellbeing reasons, there are important economic benefits for investment. In digital inclusion initiatives such as subsidised internet connections like Skinny Jump and digital skills education like our Stepping Up programs in Whanganui. Stepping Up program. In Whanganui, there could be several $1 million of economic benefit. Secondly, we'd like you to consider using digital inclusion as a unifying tool amongst our community support, sport and special interest organisations. A council-led initiative to encourage collaboration to become more digitally capable to support all community members and would produce multiple beneficial outcomes for everyone. Thirdly, we encourage you to use digital inclusion initiatives for council-owned social housing properties. This includes all existing pensioner flats plus any new social housing units invested in. We would like to see all social housing units have free or subsidised internet connections provided, plus free digital skills education for all tenants. Through our work with our partners, the Aotearoa Community Housing Trust and many other social support agencies throughout Aotearoa, we know there are considerable benefits, not just for tenants, but for the social housing providers. We'd like to congratulate you for all your impressive achievements in getting our long-term plan deliberations to this point, and are confident you'll make the best decisions for us all. Whatever you decide, we'd like you to know we remain committed to doing our best to support Whanganui by continuing to provide our free Stepping Up and heavily subsidised Skinny Jump programs through our strong partnership with Whanganui District Library and other Whanganui-based organisations. Ka pai tā koutou rā.
Great, thank you, Alistair, and thank you for all the work that you do in our community as well. So I'll go to Councillor Rob. Oh, right, okay. Right, okay. That's why it's been up there for so long. Deputy Mayor Helen.
Thank you so much, Alistair. You are advocating, as I'm reading it, for, like, I call it grassroots digital inclusion. There's also a big gap, I'd say, in getting Wanganui visible online, you know, and trading online. Do you think that we should be concentrating on the grassroots if we only had so much budget, or also trying to, or have you thought about that?
Yeah, I think so, and I've sort of said that partly in saying that maybe, you know, we at the moment, the digital strategy had 4 pillars, of which digital inclusion was one, and the other 3, I feel, you know, possibly can survive on their own, but I think council-led stimulation with any digital initiative, I mean, I do passionately know that the future is digital, and we've got to, you know, really get into that. And it's ubiquitous, so we take it for granted, and it's changing all the time, for, you know, for better and for worse. I mean, there's huge safety reasons for. We operate with foundation level because, you know, I've said that there are huge economic benefits, and in the time, I'm hoping someone's going to ask me about those, because there is several million dollars that Wanganui, based on the Spark Foundation report in 2023, they estimated nationally that between 450, say, and over $700 million GDP could be increased by connecting and upskilling the 130,000 households that remain unconnected to the internet, and you know, and many of those have needs for foundation level education. In Wanganui, that's about just over 7% of households. So if you extrapolate that, say, based on 7% of Wanganui's households, say 1,200, that's between $3 and $7 million.
Thank you, Alistair.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Councillor Philippa.
Yeah, thanks very much, Alistair, for raising, you know, this submission to us. Just in regard to your 3 points around what you know could be detrimental, just in regard to the cutting community funding, while you're, are you aware that we're actually, there's 1.1 million of community funding in the plan, and we're looking to increase that by 100,000?
Thank you.
Yeah, while you're quite correct that some community funding will be reduced. But
thank you, Councillor Philippa. Yes, we are aware of that, and we have voted to increase it with you. We didn't vote on all the points. We felt that it was better to just say we really don't support any reduction in the library's you know, role, which is, you know, our right, but we'll go along with what you think is right there. But certainly we're very grateful and really impressed that it's $100,000 increase, isn't it? I think.
Thank you. Sorry, Alistair.
And that's great. But maybe that, and we'll have some time
sorry,
to come
Alistair,
back to you and to say how to
sorry,
spend that.
Alistair, that's time. Yeah, sorry, thank you. Sorry to be so brutal, but we've got a lot of people to get through.
Just to be here, thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Nice to be here, thank you.
All right. Yeah. All right, I'll call Colin Anderson. Yeah. I think you've got 20 minutes, Colin, so you've got...
may well be quite less than that, but thank you.
All right, if you need it, yeah.
Well, firstly,
welcome.
thank you for the opportunity to speak today. Quite nervous, sorry. Having paid rates for more than 45 years, this is the first time I've made a submission to Council on the LTP, and I would like to expand on some of the points that I made in my submission, which you have all had. I believe the only correct outcome from this LTP process in the current financial climate is a nil rate increase.
A little bit closer.
Oh, sorry.
If we can just get that closer to you.
From the beginning?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. Having paid rates in Wanganui for more than 45 years, this is the first time I have made a submission to our council on the LTP, and I would like to expand on some of the points I made in my submission. I believe the only correct outcome for this LTP process in the current financial climate is a nil rate increase. I'm making a submission as I'm fed up with council squandering ratepayers' money on vanity projects. Council's job, and this is my opinion, is to provide core functions such as potable water, collecting and treating wastewater, disposing of stormwater, and providing roading infrastructure for motor vehicles. By vanity projects, I include an unnecessary grand rebuild of the art gallery and any commercial activities such as the Glassworks Flight Training School, which I understand is still operating at a loss, unnecessary elaborate pedestrian crossings, and worst of all, this latest boondoggle of a hotel and car park complex. Council already owns a hotel and has done for 6 or 7 years, and I understand it is still running at a loss. Time and again, Council has demonstrated a lack of business acumen. The Prime Minister recently said that local councils need to focus on the must-do, not the nice-to-do, and deliver well on core services. Wānui District Council is not heeding his advice. Regarding service delivery, although a frequent user of the Davis Library, I acknowledge it doesn't have to be open 7 days a week. However, I am concerned about the parking from plans I've seen of the art gallery's site works. Half of the street parking in front of the library will be lost, as well as half of the original car park area. I request that Council urgently reconsider this in providing parking facilities on the Queen's Park school site over the full area. Regarding core infrastructure, Council needs to focus on spending on critical components, such as fixing water leaks and repairing potholes promptly. Vanity projects, such as Guyton Street and painting coloured designs on the road and painted water troughs, and the removal of car parks, such as in Drews Avenue, are not essential and should be stopped. If the Council wants to persist with these projects, there should be no cost to ratepayers. By this I mean all costs, including Council staff, designers, consultants, consultation, contractors, time and materials, etc., is sourced externally and lodged in a bank account before the works commence. Overall, I feel the proposed cuts in the plan are cosmetic. Significant savings can be made from the following items. Cease funding the Glassworks. Cease funding Wānganui and Partners. The ratepayers have already funded them for many years and it's now time for them to stand on their own 2 feet. And these 2 items alone would save 8% on rates. Removal funding for the buses. They've had a trial period and it has not been financially successful. I have observed around town that the number of people on the buses seldom exceeds 3, even at peak times, and most of the time they're empty. Remove all climate change funding. We need to adapt as past generations already have. Do not spend money on the North Mole, extra money on the North Mole rejuvenation. Development should not exceed the external funding available. Stop funding in the port development in its current form. In my opinion, this only benefits one company. I'd call for a stop of the funding of playground replacement in Kauai Park. Kauai Park is iconic in New Zealand, and any plastic upgrades would be tacky and take away from its uniqueness. In the past, the community has already indicated that they wish this to be so. Investment in building houses should be paused. Pensioner housing could be sold to external providers as they have access to funding unavailable to councils. Next one, dump the curbside recycling. It is not a necessary community function as there are services already available for those who wish to recycle. I believe this should not have been brought in as the community cannot afford this extra financial burden. I also question the unnecessary changing of intersection layouts which are leading to a lower safety standard and congestion. And to this I refer to the turning pockets which are across the centre line and restricting traffic movement. Regarding insurance costs, like any prudent homeowner, you modify the value of your insured property to coincide with last year's premiums. Now, I realise that council insures based on their value, but there are a lot of properties and facilities within council that do not have to be insured. Big one, hotel and car park. This is not a council core function. Council has appalling record of failed commercial activity with corresponding massive cost blowouts. Council has a track record of being unable to control a budget on non-core council projects. If a hotel was a going concern, private developers would have already been doing it. Even the New Zealand Taxpayers Union have called this an inappropriate use of ratepayers' money, and Whanganui is a laughing stock on Kiwi Block. The recent purchase of land by Council before the due process of LTP consultation has been completed is devious. If this occurred in private enterprise, I believe those responsible would probably face instant dismissal. As I've said, Council already owns a hotel. The questions are, why has Council paid $3.9 million for properties that have a combined capital value of only $1.85 million? Where's the extra $2 million gone? Currently, both properties provide rates income of $32,000 per year. This will be lost when the businesses close or move out. I feel this is a fait accompli. In fact, the whole process surrounding this proposal seems somewhat dodgy to me. Every person I have spoken to in the community are against this proposal and are very angry that Council is even contemplating it. What is proposed for the historic house that is located on the property at 33 Victoria Avenue? Is Council going to quietly demolish it? Both sites would require archaeological investigation before excavation could begin, another cost. Both sites have poor foundations and high groundwater tables. Extensive construction would be required for any building other than a single storey. There's also the risk of inundation during river flooding events. Regarding the car park, Councillor Vincent is perfectly correct in stating that parking buildings do not work in Whanganui. Any underground structure between Ridgeway Street and the river would require extensive construction costs and 24/7 pumping, such as under the Kmart car park. This is because of the high groundwater within that area. With regards to the Whanganui Royal Opera House, I would support Bruce Dixon's submission, and I acknowledge there is a strong and loyal group who support the Opera House, and I commend them for their service, but believe the work can be delayed until ratepayers are not struggling financially. With regards to Marae development funding, I'm strongly opposed to funding being provided for this. I don't receive funding for repairs and maintenance to my home, nor do I expect it. Churches and sporting groups are responsible for maintenance of their facilities. And as a kamatua, I strongly believe responsibility lies with each marae community. I would support, though, the Whanganui Life Saving. They have essential service and a community asset. Regarding the Motua Gardens paving and crossing, this is not an essential expenditure and totally unnecessary. This is a route used by trucks and should remain as it is. The money would be more wisely spent on the Whanganui East Pool or the Aviary. A legally compliant pedestrian crossing can be built for $25,000 and would not impede traffic flow. And these figures I give is $3,000 for Belisha poles, $5,000 for pram crossings, $6,000 for white line markings, and $11,000 for orange cones. With Rapinee Road, regarding the Rapinee Road, any intelligent person would realise that cycling on this road is dangerous, and to do so would put themselves and motorists at risk. There are more appropriate roads to be cycling on and underutilised cycleways already in Whanganui. I object to ratepayers paying for other people's hobbies. With regards to asset sales, this is a trick question as Council is seeking approval with no details supplied. As it is the ratepayers who own these assets, not the community, it is ratepayers who should be consulted. A complete list of assets, along with evaluations, etc., needs to be supplied to ratepayers to start the discussion. This is not a short-term fix, but needs honest and detailed consideration. regarding development contributions. We have a housing shortage in this country. An extra financial burden on developers will add to the cost of housing even more and will stifle necessary development. I disagree with the increase in development contributions. There should be a simple rule applied uniformly, and occupancy-based charges are subjective and can be inaccurate. There should be no remissions for community groups or trusts or social housing. High-density developments, such as social housing, place extreme demands on infrastructure far in excess of a large house dwelling on the same lot size. Council seems to be forgetting that developers actually pay for and install all the infrastructure during the development stage and then has to gift it to council. Development contributions are in fact a double charge on the developer. If development charges are imposed, they should be at building consent stage when actual use can be more accurately determined. Rates postponement and remissions policy. I support this in principle, but it should be based on financial hardship only. Reading the council proposed policy, it appears to be based on ethnicity and not financial hardship. Once again, as a kaumatua, I find this policy deeply insulting and racist. You are saying that I cannot govern my own finances. Finally, I've consulted council's website and find that my rates and those properties around me are going up 13%, not the 10.6 as claimed. That is 14 weeks of my pension. 14 weeks that I have no money for food, power or heating. With 29% of Whanganyi's population being pensioners and a further 30 plus on fixed or low incomes, you're forcing extreme hardship on over 20,000 people who already are struggling under the current economic climate. Thank you. I apologise that it may have been somewhat abrupt, but...
No, that's what you're here for. Really appreciate you coming in and to give your perspective. It's no problem at all.
Yeah.
So I'll go to Councillor Josh.
Thanks, Colin. Just a question about your statement around the focus on core infrastructure and that being our priority. For next year's rates increase, 4.4% of the increase is proposed to be on core infrastructure, roads, footpaths, things like that. Yet you've said in your submission that you support retaining it at the current level, which wouldn't be enough to deal with inflation and things like that. So can you clarify your thinking on that point?
Well, I believe it's like anybody. If you have a budget or an income level, you work within that. There could be more ways, and a lot of ways where efficiencies can be gained in achieving results, but I don't think this current financial climate is such that you can afford to increase those at this point in time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Michael.
Hi, Colin. My main question to you is it more about the rate increase that worries you rather than the individual items?
It's overall. I'm trying to use these as examples where I believe that there's not been prudent use of money.
Yeah. So if there was 0% rate rises, but we still did a lot of these things, you'd be happy. But it's actually the fact is that you're on a pension and you need to keep it as low as possible.
Well, I think most of Whanganyi, to be quite honest, although I've listed low and pensioners and low and fixed incomes, I would say that everybody in Whanganyi is affected by the current financial crisis, and extra and unnecessary expenses are not welcome and would be hard to find.
Yeah. So just to really just drill that point home, we can do all the fun stuff if the total rate rise wasn't without reach. So you don't mind the fun stuff as long as the rate rise wasn't going up.
I looked at as that would be disposable income. It's like after I've paid my bills, then if there's little left over, I can go to town, take my wife to town, and have coffee or lunch in one of the local businesses. But if you don't have it there, you can't do that.
Yep. No, that's perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Colin, Bob, go. Just a quick question from me. Our rates to do nothing, to basically do the basics, was at high teens to start off with. We've got it down to 10.6% on average across all rates types. That's what you're doing. So to get it down to zero, have you done some modelling around what that looks like and what the cuts would be?
No, I'm sorry, I haven't. I've just looked at some of the numbers and seen where some savings can be made, but I do recall some little while ago where we had 3 years of zero rate increase. Now, whether that was good or bad for the community as a whole, I'm not sure. I couldn't tell you one way or the other. But I'm just saying that by giving the average, it always has been very misleading. And when I was referring to the properties around me, there are a significant number of pensioners or people on pensions who own those properties, and I believe they will be struggling and find it very hard.
Okay. Thank you. I'll get Councillor Rob.
Thank you, Colin. Development contributions you expressed an opposition to. Given that they're an attempt for exacerbated pays, what's your attitude across the whole council towards user pays?
I would support user pays, yes.
So why wouldn't development contributions be user pays?
Well, development contribution, as I understand it, is not because the rates for use of services includes those user pays charges. The development contributions, as I understand it, and correct me please if I'm wrong, is that you're actually looking at the potential of the subdivision or the developer's property and charging them for that potential. And what I was trying to bring across is that the developers are already paying for the infrastructure, which is then being given to council. It's been paid for, well, it's been constructed in accordance with council's requirements, so it's not as it's up to the correct standards.
Yeah.
So I believe that's...
Obviously we can't debate this, and I'd like to talk to you offline about it, but it's really about funding the cost of growth.
Yep.
So.
All right. Look, we've got no further questions. Oh, do we do? Councillor Philippa has just come in on time.
Thank you. Colin, thank you so much for your submission.
Just bring your microphone closer to you.
Thank you so much for your submission. Are you aware that we are not funding the Tide? We're not funding, I think, $200,000. So we're not funding it, but of course it's a regional council service, and they're possibly taking on that, and you're likely to get a bill from Horizons on that one, of course.
Do, yes.
And I guess around, not necessarily sticking up for it, but in regard to, I think you made a comment about, get the government to pay, or, for example, I think the port, you talked about we shouldn't be putting anything in, but getting those government contributions, are you aware, getting government contributions, councils have to foot up with money for that? The government won't give us, say, money like 12.5 million for the port without us putting a hand up as well. Are you aware? I have said that, Andrew.
I'm aware that with the funding there's been shared costs with regional councils and councils, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, look, we don't have time for any other questions, unfortunately.
Thank you.
So thank you very much. You've had a good session, so I appreciate your time and effort. Yeah.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, and as I said, it's it is.
Thank you. All right. I don't think we're still waiting for Johan. You're not turned up. Okay. Good morning, Paula. So we're slightly changing time, so you're up next. Yeah. So Paula Conda. Yeah. Welcome.
Right, morena everybody. My name's Paula Conda, and I'm here representing the Wanganui Harrier Club. So my submission is not from personally myself, but it is the views of the Wanganui Harrier Club Committee and also feedback from many of its members. I am currently the president of the Wanganui Harrier Club, and we are very involved with firstly offering low-cost well-being, healthy activity for Wanganui locals. Secondly, we also do offer events to areas outside of Wanganui, so other Harrier clubs. And thirdly, we offer some larger scale events like the Wanganui Three Bridges Marathon and Masters Games, and potential too for other of those sorts of events. We are solely run by volunteers, so we don't have people in paid positions organising these activities. It is all volunteer organisation. The submission that we put forward was that within that roading, footpaths and Three Waters core infrastructure, that there were areas of urgent safety needs within our existing footpaths and shared pathways. We do feel that we're extremely fortunate in Whanganui. We've got some amazing pathways that have been built in recent years, and we feel very fortunate to have those. But along the way, there are little bits that people thought they would come next, and they are logical links, and they haven't. And so a lot of them do actually cause some major health and safety issues to the general public, as well as to people doing events, running or walking or training, whatever they happen to be doing. I've highlighted them in the submission, and the main ones are looking at having some links, so loops and things like that. And if you're out there on a normal evening or weekend, you'll see lots of people using those links anyway. And it's also looking at the lowest cost way of actually rectifying some of the safety issues, with the awareness, of course, where we're at financially, sort of as a area as well as individuals. So as far as the Kauai Park area, there's 3 different things that we've highlighted, but each one could be treated as an individual thing, and each thing within it, even if 1 or 2 things were done, would make an improvement, even if there wasn't the funding for all of it. So, for example, there used to be speed signs there. I think they were 20k from memory. Now there are no speed signs at all. So if someone's going through that area at 50k, they've probably got every right to do so. Things like the possibility of adding some speed bumps in there, with the idea of the fact that it is an area where there are a large number of children around. Slowing those vehicles down is a necessity, and also possibly too looking at maybe making 1 or 2 areas within there one way instead of having the access going both ways. Widening some of the pathways and some of the bollards that are already in existence, actually moving them 2 or 3 metres out without actually having to repave areas, leaving them maybe as shell rock, would make a huge difference to anyone using that area. We did also mention the Dublin Street Bridge on and off, and we didn't offer any solutions to that one because that one seemed to be a bit in the too hard basket for us. But there were a couple of major issues there when you're coming off on the Whanganui east side. If you're in the cycleway, it spits you straight out into the traffic. And on the other side, if you're coming onto, off the bridge onto the area by the roundabout there is a large drop-off. It's about this sort of size, and I know it's often painted white, but over time the white disappears, and also whether that is visible enough to people or not. And then, there was a mention too of the area by James McGregor Memorial Park, where there's a little bit of pathway that never got finished, probably with some plan of something else that was going to happen around that area. But a fairly cheap option we thought might be to actually just make that little bridge there one way and widen that pathway slightly, and then not have the traffic turning off James McGregor Drive over onto that one-way bridge. And then the Cobham Bridge area, we understand, is probably more waka kotahi, but whether there can be some pressure from the council as well as to sorting that out. Again, it's a walkway area that I think everyone thought would come next after the underpass was put in, and it never has. It's the area that is on the Marae side of the State Highway 4, and hence most people use the other side and then cross over, and that underpass is well underused. And then lastly, bollards. We've got a range of different bollards around the town area. The one that was in my submission with the wooden structure is very low and very hard to see, and some of the new ones that have been put in are actually not movable, which I understand is a cost factor, but maybe there could be some consultation with people that use the areas as to which ones might be more beneficial to be removable ones and which ones were fine to be fixed. So, and sorry, the last thing I didn't put in the submission, but one thing we're always looking at as a Harrier Club, encouraging anyone to get involved with physical activity, is looking at accessibility to people with disabilities as well. And it may be people with visual impairments, or it may be people with mobility issues. And again, we're very fortunate with what we do have, but maybe there are some areas that we could just iron out a little bit to make it accessible to more people.
Okay, all done. Yeah. Thank you very much, Paula. So I'll go to Deputy Mayor Helen for first question.
Thanks, Paula. Really good submission. Really appreciate it. I assume that at the moment there is no sort of community group that's bringing in yourself and, say, Sport Wanganui and the impaired community when, say, council was looking at doing a footpath upgrade or changes like that. I assume that group, consultation group, doesn't exist.
No, and that's what we would love to have. We would love to have that opportunity, and because sometimes it may be as simple as a discussion, and it may be no extra cost, but it might be just that actually this could be done very easily. It might be just even a piece of a little bit of paint on the ground or something like that.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Rob.
Yeah, thank you. Paula, I note your support for the Rapanui Road cycleway. Others are submitting on this and saying they prefer to improve the connectivity, such as UPAC coming down on the southern side to make a circuit. What's in terms of priority, where do you think the council's priority should be?
As a Harrier Club, we feel that the priority should be smoothing out the areas we've got first in the lowest possible cost way, and then we are in full support of anything in addition to that as well, because the more the better. But we would love to have the areas that are already in existence utilised to their fullest first.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And also added to that, when we're thinking about people coming from out of town as well, many people comment on our beautiful awa, and the more we can utilise that as well in a healthy way, then the better as well.
Great. No, look, there's no other questions, Paula, but thank you. That was worthwhile hearing your perspective of our cycleways, etc. So appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
All right. Okay. I think we don't have. We had a no-show from one person, so we have an early break. Back at 10:49. Stephen and friends. Over to you. So.
Yeah, thank you. Tēnā koutou katoa. It's nice to see many of you here today. So just an introduction to myself. Stephen Lee is my name, and I'm the General Manager of the Wanganui Kai Hub. But today I speak on behalf of the Wanganui Food Security Cooperative. This is a group comprising the Wanganui City Mission, Christchurch Community Centre Trust Board, Te Ora Hau, Stone Soup, Unity Food, the Wanganui Kai Hub, and Heritage Food Crops Research Trust. This collective accounts for an estimated 95% of all food donated by supermarkets in Wanganui. In addition, this group also gathers food directly from the land for distribution to the community. The Wanganui Food Security is a group of organizations and individuals striving to change how food is sourced and distributed in the Wanganui region. Our mission is to work collaboratively to improve our community through education and creating dignified access to high-quality, nutritious kai for our people. Our 3 core goals are as follows. Number 1, reduce food waste. Number 2, alleviate food poverty. Number 3, transition people from dependence to independence with regards to food. So why are we here today? We are here because of the concern that we have on behalf of the community that there's nothing in the long-term plan, or at least there seems to be nothing in the long-term plan that addresses risk in case of a major disaster in Wanganui. Secondly, the availability of affordable, nutritious food to large number, we're also concerned because of the availability of affordable, nutritious food to a large number and increasing number of people in our community who are impacted by the economic downturn. The government has made it quite clear, the central government has made it quite clear that there's going to be little, if any, funding for organizations involved in what we do. So this shrinking funding will impact organizations like ours that impact the community. So the questions we have of the council are as follows. Where is the risk management analysis in the long-term plan? How well is Wanganui equipped to handle a Cyclone Gabriel if it were to happen here? While it is quite clear that civil defence and government, central government, will play their roles in such an occurrence, what plan does the council have to play in their part in case of such a disaster? And for us, what is the plan in place for continued food supply beyond the 3 days when supermarkets generally expect to run out of supplies? We believe, if and when a major disaster hits Wanganui, it is highly likely that the council will be inundated with a whole lot of issues to deal with simultaneously and with a degree of urgency. We want to suggest to council that as far as food security is concerned, that the council consider this group, the Wanganui Food Security Cooperative, as the council's food security partner. This cooperative is already in the process of streamlining its operations and maximizing efficiency and removing duplication in what we do. We're looking for, just for an example, we're looking at how we actually optimize the use of of vehicles in terms of collection of food. We're looking at how we can actually have a single volunteer program that works right across the food industry, that serves both the needs of volunteers and our organizations well, and actually provides them with opportunities. So those are some such examples. In conclusion, if the council were to take up this suggestion, we propose that a process and resources be committed to co-creating solutions for various disaster strategies, and in doing so avoid the council appearing unprepared if and when a disaster happens. We also believe that a process and resources need to be committed for co-creating solutions for day-to-day food security for the Wanganui region, and in doing so building resilience within the local populace. We request that council give urgent consideration to how it might work with the Wanganui Food Security Cooperative in addressing the issue issue of food security in Wanganui as part of recognition that this must form part of its long-term plan.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Stephen, and thank you for you and all the work that you guys do around the food security and just and food in general. So I've experienced that myself. Look, my question is, what do you see happening around other councils around New Zealand?
Well, I can. Last week, as you know, Andrew, you attended a conference where the foodies in the Lower North Island region got together, the food recovery people. And the interesting thing is that we seem to be the only region in the Lower North Island, at least, that are working together as effectively as we do. And we're not saying we've reached there, we're just starting. So, to my knowledge, Andrew, that's I'm not aware of anyone taking this initiative the way we are looking to do.
Right, great, thank you. Councillor Josh.
Yeah, thanks, Stephen. My question is around disaster resilience. I've noted in your written submission that you've said that you're opposed to the $3.5 million of Marae-based funding. I wonder if you could talk to me about that, given that, from my perspective, part of the rationale for that funding is about ensuring that rural communities are able to be resilient to disasters when hit, and the marae can provide food and basic needs and things like that.
So that response was actually given on an individual basis, quite separate from that. I think maraes are an integral part of the civil defence and indeed our food security, particularly distribution and in community engagement.
Sure, thank you.
Councillor Glenda.
Thank you. Thanks for the great work that you're doing. It's great to see collaboration between existing entities. It's very powerful. Mindful as on a little bit from Josh's, yes. I'm just wondering if you've worked in with the existing civil defence emergency team, and I was going to ask about iwi as well.
Yeah, okay. The first answer is no, partly because, well, there are two reasons for that. One is, as a collective, we're focused just getting ourselves organised in the food area. I would like to actually acknowledge the efforts of Lauren Tamahana. She has reached out to Anthony from the City Mission isn't here, but she has reached out there, and what she said, if I quote Anthony, is that her interest did not lie in actually speaking to Anthony as member of the City Mission, but that we are as a part of the collective. As far as iwi concerned, we see that as a natural progression as we get our act together. Right. Okay. And for me in particular, I'm particularly close to one of the marae here, so I, at the right time, and I've raised it anyway with them, but at the right time, we will reach out to them.
Thank you.
Yeah. Deputy Mayor Helen.
Yeah, thank you. Great job. I don't see in your submission mention about what you've just talked about. So are you sending that to us, or what's the story?
When you say what I just... yes, I'll send it to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's excellent. Thank you.
Councillor Rob.
Yes, thank you. It's great to see 4 representatives of the organisations in this room. Just to ask a question, Stephen, you didn't see in the long-term plan any allowance for sustainability?
No, risk
management.
Disaster.
Well, I just wanted to say, are you aware there is a $100,000 sustainability fund in that plus carryover? Are you aware of that?
Okay, what is that going to be used for, Rob?
Well, it can, as I see it, what you're talking about here comes into that, but that would need to be taken up. Okay. Not the funding, though.
Yeah. My question is regarding what does good for food security look like? If I waved a magic wand and in 5 years' time you had what you wanted, what does that look like for civil defence?
Okay. I'm just going to open that to members of the collective here who might want to comment on that.
Good morning. My name is Asian. I'm the co-founder of Unity Food. And for us, food security in the region would really look like transitioning people away from being so dependent on organizations like ours, that we grow and, harvest more food from the region and have all these available resources just better used and distributed locally.
Okay, great. Thank you, Asian. Thank you very much to all of you once again.
Sorry, can I add one thing?
No, sorry, time is up, I'm afraid. Yeah. Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Thanks for all your effort. Yeah. I invite Bruce Osborne.
Thanks, Mayor
Welcome,
Andrew.
Bruce.
We should have a PowerPoint presentation, I think, that... there it is, up there, right. Okay, so, thank you, councillors, for allowing us the time to present. We first presented our business case to the Aspirations Committee in late 2023. And since then, a lot has happened on this Aramo Riverbank Enhancement Project. And our presentation, as brief as it might be, is really an executive summary of where we've got to at this point in time. Somebody's clicking, or can you click for us, Gus? Right, so the background is that we've been working on this for about 2.5 years, and it's been projected into the draft long-term plan. Next slide. And we acknowledge the significant benefits that will accrue with investment in a fully developed Aramo rail bridge up to Te Aka Stream and onwards to the Te Auhau Marae, if we can actually get the whole riverbank development there project underway. The benefits, briefly, is that the enhancement of the whole riverbank facade, safe access to the river and community toilets, improved flood resilience, etc. So there's a whole lot of benefits, and I'll leave you to read through those because we just simply don't have the time here at that point in time. But when we did present our last presentation to the Aspirations Committee, the financial case was articulated in the point of entry business case, and it was described as a staged investment over 1 to 5 years with estimated costs of about $1.5 million, whilst noting that a design concept and engineer analysis of 100k expenditure in the 2024-25 plan was noted in the draft long-term plan. So we took a lot of heart out of that it rose towards the top of the initiatives that were presented at that time, and that you had allocated somewhere near 100k for work to be done. We've since gone on and we've prioritised a lot of the projects in the program that we believe. I'm not going to go through those in a worded document, but I'll give you some visual photographs just to give you an understanding of what we're talking about. So the first one there is to get safer access to the river. We really would like to investigate and get into some floating pontoons of significant design concept and design. There's a number of these around the country. This is from the Auckland Estuary at the Auckland Rowing Club and the Waka facilities, and they go up and down on floating pontoons. That was our number one project. Number two is securing the riverbank, stabilising it, and Gus Scott here on my right, the collegiate school's rowing master, took a photograph on the 8th of last month of the young pup seal right outside the Wanganui Collegiate. So it gives you an indication really of the health of the Wanganui River. That's quite substantive. In fact, out rowing, I've seen the seals even further on up the river from that. But we need a lot more work done on stabilising the riverbank there. We've got Philippa Baker Walkway, and it's really quite a disgrace, really. It needs to do a lot of work to get that up to scratch and represent Philippa's good name in this here. As you know, we have regattas, and there's the parking area for boat trailers and community recreation at the Rowers Camp. It's very, very underdeveloped. We need a lot of resource and big enhancements there. Hand in hand with that would be a public toilet facility, and this is a photo taken at one at the Canoe Club in Wanganui East. So you've already got the design concept, you've got the buildings. It's a matter of just relocating that sort of thing if we find the money onto the Aramo Bank. Number 6 in our order of priority is tourist spectator seating between the rowing club and what we call the finishing tower alongside the riverbank, the rail bridge there. And if you have a close look at that photograph, you might see scaffolding all around that finishing tower. We're in the throes at the moment, about 3 weeks to go, and we'll have spent 60,000 on modifying all of that, and that's our own investments and getting grants for that. And it's starting to look quite good. The example of seating, terrace seating at Cook's Gardens is not a good example. We think we can do a hell of a lot better than that, but it would certainly enhance the whole riverbank if we tidied all that up. Water hydrants is essential to clean up that concrete slipway, shared pathway that will go from the rail bridge further north towards the Te Ohau Marae. And we understand that one of those hydrants is already, is that the bell? No? All right. Okay. And then there's bitumen concrete northern and southern entrance to the riverbank amenities. So we'll flick through a little bit more. I've already indicated there's a lot of background to this. $1.5 million is probably well underpricing it. But you can read through some of this background material at your leisure. You've got that there. And we'll go on to what we would do should this 100K be allocated to us. These are the short-term work plan that we would like to work with Council on. Convene other meetings of the stakeholders, ratify, amend or change the order of priority, the activities that we think we would do, work with the various stakeholders like Council, DOC, Horizons and what have you. And then go 4, 5, 6 on to number 7, the last one there, because of lack of time, established a blueprint for the entire project and cost it accordingly. And to give tangible evidence to the community where this source of funding have come from, and perhaps put some of that into one of these pontoons. I'll leave the background, we'll flick through that. This is reading material for you, and I want to go right towards the very last slide. Summary. This Riverbank Enhancement Committee is aware that Becker Consultants from Wellington have been engaged by the Whanganui District Council for an integrated plan of the Irama Riverbank area from the rail bridge to and including the Te Ohau Marae. We have met with the Chief Architect from Becker's along with your engineering personnel in the council. And if we flip to the last slide, Becker Consultants have already spent significant amount of money from council money on developing photographs and colour coordinated plans of the riverbank and all of the activities, projects that we've been discussing. So there's 3, these are big A5 or A6 plans already been done, quite a lot of money spent, and you'll see the logos there of Horizons and DOC and the council, along with Becker, who have all signed into all of this at this point in time. So that's a very, very quick synopsis, really, of the work that's been undertaken, and we welcome your questions.
Right, thank you very much, Bruce. Yeah. All right.
No questions.
Hello, Michael.
I could have gone slower if there's no question.
What are the current sunk costs at the moment with Becker? Are you aware of those figures?
I'm aware that the council may well have spent in the vicinity of $50,000 to $60,000. Okay. You can't. It's just a sum. It may be more. It may be a bit less.
And are we at the point where we know the distribution of costs allocation on the $1 million project?
No, so this is what we're suggesting, that you did allocate $100,000 in your draft long-term plan. Should this money be forthcoming, then that's where we start to do all the work on the breaking down on all these costs. And then we said $1.5 million for the whole lot. It was an indicative sum. As we know today, you can probably double or triple it. If this is going to be a staged investment over 1 to 5 years, and that's what we believe will probably happen.
So after the seed funding, we'll know how much Horizon's going to pay?
Yeah, those sorts of things will all come into it. Horizons and DOC and our own fundraising and whatever. We've got access to a significant amount of expertise. Designers and builders and whatever. Even the pontoons, which would be just superb down there. We've been given an indication we could get the plans from Auckland, for example. Save a lot of money.
Deputy Mayor Helen.
Thank you. So you've obviously got a cohesive group,
We have.
which has got all the players involved in it,
Yes, we have.
and you've got that mechanism to raise funds. Is that through each of your individual organisations, or as a whole body that you find that you're able to raise the funds?
I think it would be as a whole body, because there's an inanga spawning activity that DOC are very interested in, so they will come to the party, and this grassed embankments between the pontoons could be for that, and so there's financial resource to come into that. They've already signed off and said that they are totally supportive of this. We had a shared meal up at the Te Auhau Marae only 3 weeks ago, and we're so united in our whole concept. Aramo has been an underdeveloped suburb for forever. And I have to say to you that when you stop dredging the river, the major flow is headed more towards the Aramo bank, hence all the slumping that's taking place, and the significant cost that you've just had to endure with the big slip outside the Aramo shopping centre there. Well, that 60,000 we're spending on the finishing tower at the moment, the riverbank is all starting to slump right in front of that.
So the plan that Becca are doing is actually looking at that
part of all
dredging
of that.
issue?
Yep.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's their landscape architect, Craig Pocock from Becca's, who's been working with your staff.
Thank you.
So it's 2.5 years, I think 13 different entities we're consulted with over this period of time, and we've had numerous meetings.
Bruce, yeah, thank you very much. Sorry
Very
to cut
good.
you off, we have to keep moving. So,
Thank you.
Thank you,
We'll look
that's a
forward to your,
great presentation, thank you.
Your deliberations.
Thank you very much. That's a great submission.
Okay, I'll invite Rosemary, if you're okay to go ahead of time.
I am indeed.
Yeah, welcome.
Well, then, morning, council. I don't know any of you really. It's quite scary.
That's
Been
right,
a resident
you're very
of
welcome
Wanganui
here
for
anyway.
50 years, and I kind of liking round the room thinking, right.
Welcome to the room.
It's fine. I'm assuming that you all have the information previous in relation to the River Walkway and Helmore Street. Yep, cool. So I'm only going to do a probably two-minute presentation because I'm a person who likes to get it done and out of here. Reasons for the walkway across the reserve park at the end of Helmore Street, Wanganui East, okay? The numbers of person out and about of all ages is increasing in Wanganui East and further afield, and are using the river walkway for varying activities, and we're all seeing it. With the ever-increasing traffic flow, especially around Dublin Street Bridge, becoming more and more difficult to navigate safely, it's only a matter of time now that this will become a death trap with an ever-increasing traffic flow, and I think that stands to itself. And we've had a couple of near incidences with people on mobility scooters going round the Anzac Parade walkway there where the tin bit comes off Dublin Street Bridge as the cars go round, and they've hit it and they've got a bit of a fright. So we're talking old people here at the moment. The purpose, or the proposed pathway, is away from the road hazard, the one we're talking about, at the Dublin Street roundabout crossing. Note the photos already presented, and please, if this does not give you a full impact of the problem, please go for a walk and find out for yourselves, because it's worth it. From Helmore Street, there is a clear view both ways of the road leading into the proposed crossing, and it is the straightest place on this part of Anzac Parade, well clear of any major driveways and other hazards mentioned previously. Note, from your photos that you have, there is already provision made for the crossing there, but for some reason it was not completed, and it's the only opening along this closed off area, like that, suggesting one was meant to go there. There is a clear crossing here and that people are already using as a direct line from the river walkway up to the shopping centre at Wanganui East, but is too wet and mucky, especially in the winter months. And we've seen people doing that, and they get halfway across and you see them shaking their legs because of the mud and muck. This place is where the most highly used group of persons would use it and was not once disputed by any of the signatories talked to for it to go anywhere else. So indicates a high approval from this group of people in Whanganui East as an approximate place. Now, I only did those written signatories was 120, and I think we got 97 of them, and I only had a week but talking to lots of people drove me kind of insane, really, because they all had problems. Yeah. Anyway, where are we? The road coming off Helmore Street into Anzac Parade has already a compulsory stop, making a crossing at this point safer than most of the other road entrances of Anzac Parade. This crossing here would be one point to access the whole of the city centre, bypassing the Dublin Street Bridge area completely, utilising the town bridge, which has a much safer, more even access into the city. The cost of doing this to make getting from A to B, being the city centre, is far more cost effective, suggested already in the vicinity of $10,000, $15,000. Now that was what was suggested by one of your people that I sent the information into. To put a pathway that 45 metres through would cost about $10,000, $15,000. But it was also said that you were broke. So, yeah. But for the council at this present time, and having to fix the hazards already addressed in my previous presentation to you, and that letter for this pathway is significantly lower than the probably $500,000 million to fix the pathway from Helmore Street through to Dublin Street and then across the bridge. I mean, it's sense. The chain that's there at present, if we're into recycling and sustainability, along the road, there's a chain that's been broken off. Lordy, 5 minutes.
Got 5.5 minutes
okay.
total. That's
broken
fine,
off.
we've got plenty of time.
Can be reused. The footpath past Helmore Street going into Upakanaro are wider, more visually open and smooth to navigate. From Helmore Street down to Dublin Street Bridge, however, and past the garage on the corner going into town is a nightmare. They're narrower, bumpier, covered with flora. Most importantly, it's a much safer option than what we have at present. And with the ever-increasing numbers of persons using or wanting to use the river walkway to utilise the services to the city, sorry people, that at present is not available to all Whanganui East residents, and might I say, lots of town residents that are using that walkway, and we've watched them coming across, using that walkway to come up to go to the shopping centre. This would be a much more suitable option to enjoy without the fear, anxiety of traversing the present situation. Now I have a quick solution if this walkway is not available today and it's coming around, and I want you to just look at it, because seriously, this is a very small walkway, 45 metres, and can be done for 2 or 3, 4,000. It would be really nice to think that council have heard our request for a pathway at the same as the river walkway be made into this coming round of proposals for the city. But as it has been explained financially, it's the monster in the room, and who pays seems to be a major issue also. With that in mind, can I suggest a lesser expensive option that could happen sooner and perhaps more presentable to parks and reserves, because that seems to be an issue too. That being, while in the South Island this last couple of months, we saw these pathways. This would be an easy, less expensive, accessible alternative. It would also be more aesthetically pleasing from an environment point of view. Now, if you look at those pictures, you will see I went to the council in Invercargill, and they said that it was made of just wooden edges. All of their pathways through their parks and their riverways and things are just made with the wooden edges quite wide and accessible for prams, walkers, bikers, you name it. It's accessible to everybody, and it's made from the foundation of an AP20 crushed
do night. Now, I have no idea what that is, but you can see the person walking on it, and this was in winter, and it had been raining, and it was absorbent, and there were no humps and bumps, and it's a solution that could be used.
Now, Rose, I'm just conscious you've only got 2 minutes left. There's a question, so just wanting to let you know that, yeah.
I'm finished. I thought it would take 2 minutes, but I'm as nervous as anything, so go for it.
Well, you've done very well, and thank you for engaging with council. I think
Right.
by the sound of it for the first time, but
Definitely.
So, I'll go to Councillor Ross.
Thank you. Great presentation. I actually went down there to check it out for myself firsthand. Yeah, it's not good, so I support you. But the question is, you've acknowledged a letter from one of our roading managers, and you dated it thanking that officer on the 25th of February. So has there been any further communication since you acknowledged that letter from the roading manager about how this is progressing separate to your presentation today?
No, I was asked just to come and present because they felt that it was a really good option and a good idea and couldn't see why it couldn't be done. So we did have a phone call, but he said that there was an issue between Parks and Reserves and Council and the funding. That was basically it.
So to bring it here. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. That's it, Rose. So I see you're calling yourself Rose. I call you Rosemary, but anyway, welcome, Rose. So thank you very much for. As I said, you've gone to a lot of effort here and printed off copies for us. I think I'm not sure, but thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And I will hear, won't I? Yes. Thank you.
All right.
I think the people will be happy. Thank you.
Okay, so where are we up to? Good morning, Alan. Yeah, you're sitting there all by yourself. You better come and join the party.
No one wants to hear this.
You're well versed on what's required here, so a bit of deja vu for you, but welcome.
So I'll get 17 minutes, right? Ko Whanganui te awa. Ko Whanganui toko ahau. Ko Taylor toko whanau. Ko Alan toko inoa. Tēnā koto, tēnā koto, tēnā koto katoa. First thing I want to say to you, councillors, is congratulations on a particularly lucid document that you sent out for consultation. It's very easy to read, well laid out, and that's a credit to staff and the councillors, whoever had all input into that. It's probably about the last good thing I'll say about it. And I'm not going to say much about your document because what I want to say today is a personal submission to you. I'm not speaking on behalf of any group or any organisation. But I want to take a large picture view of where the long-term plan is going. I've handed around a photograph, and I'll refer to that in a moment. It is a photograph from a satellite of the most devastating cyclone to affect New Zealand on post-colonial record. It struck just 15 months ago, centred over Hawke's Bay, in terms of the damage it did for us. If you look at that photograph, you'll see the coastline's a little hard to decipher. I'm sorry about the printing quality. But you can see a W on it that represents the position of Whanganui, and you can see a G on it which represents roughly the position of the Glengarry locality in Hawke's Bay. That's photograph. It's a brilliant image of a cyclone because it's the kind of thing that we climatologists almost get orgasmic over. It's so good in terms of its perfectness, but it still only represents about 40% of the total cyclone. So you can see that Glengarry and Whanganui are only 5% of the cyclone's diameter away from each other. So I wanted you to commit some figures to mind. The heaviest rainfall that came out of Gabriel was 400 millimetres in 12 hours over the Glengarry locality, and that feeds the Esk River. By way of comparison, The largest recorded flood event in Whanganui City, 2015, resulted in 100 millimetres of rain over 24 hours. So those rivers over in Hawke's Bay, the Esk, the Naruroro and the Tutaikuri, received fourfold this amount of rain in 12 hours, an eightfold intensity compared with what we had. Their floodplains were devastated. Now the Esk catchment is still only 1/8 that of the Whanganui River catchment. The question I would ask is, what if that cyclone had passed 5% westward of where it did? Where would it have come? Right across the Whanganui catchment. So Whanganui might have received, and it's very crude modelling, of course, a lot more variables go into river modelling and flooding than just rainfall and catchment size. But it gives you an indication, if we were to suggest that we might have had about 60 times the water come down in Whanganui than came down in 2015. What type of event would that have meant for us? Not 6, not 60, not 160 people homeless, maybe 6,000. With associated billions in damage to housing, commercial and public buildings, wrecked service infrastructure, with no functioning waters, impassable roads, a destroyed airport, no hospital access, disrupted policing and food shortages. Where is the level of preparedness? I notice in your document it's an extra $35 million allocated for stormwater. That's a great start, but here's the kicker. You've said you'll delay that because of affordability. That's a word I'll come back to. Putting this delay in perspective, over the last 30 years, sea level has risen by 11 centimetres, a third of a centimetre a year roughly. But in the last 2 years, it rose at 1 centimetre each year, a threefold acceleration. What does that mean? That means quite a bit for the future, probably. What happens when high tides, storm surges, and these types of floods are imposed on a rising sea level? Where does the water go? Now, I note your plan mentions growth almost page by page, but makes much more scant reference to resilience, robustness, and adaptation. Is it time to remove the rose-tinted spectacles? The most concerning omission from the long-term plan is the apparent lack of systems thinking in it. The LTP shows some, but little recognition of how our physical, economic, social, cultural, and societal systems are integral parts of a district-wide or global system. Where are the interrelationships, either postulated, modelled, suggested, estimated, between the tangled variables of these systems? Everything affects everything else. But the plan is more holistic. It's not more holistic. It's not holistic enough. It's too reductionist. And for years I've witnessed and even been part of this council avoiding making essential calls about the things that really matter for our future generations, for our tamariki, for our mokopuna. I invite you to consider the affordability of not making what I would call mokopuna decisions. Because unless you do so, I'm afraid that the words of Kurt Vonnegut will be vindicated. We will go down in history as the first society that wouldn't save itself because it wasn't cost effective. Ngā mihi. I'll
Thank
take
you.
one question.
Thank you, Alan. Very much. I'll go to Deputy Mayor Helen.
Thanks, Alan. You mentioned putting off the stormwater funding, but in fact, in these big events, I don't think that would have made much difference. You can correct me if I'm wrong. So where do you think we should be putting our money? Is it purely in moving away from low areas or something else?
I don't really want to comment on where you should put your money. I would, referencing back to your delay in the $35 million expenditure for stormwater, I think you're probably all aware of how far behind the 8 ball you are in terms of stormwater service for this city. Your other waters are good. Stormwater's a bit of a mess, and I recall all of that. It being, when I was on council, an $80 million shortfall at that point. those figures came through from our general manager infrastructure at that time. And if you read the infrastructure strategic plan, you'll see that, or the infrastructure strategy. In terms of where you put your money, yeah, a big storm like that, you're not going to get away from it. But I'm more concerned about planning for resilience in terms of how you deal with that kind of event when it happens. What do you do with your people? How do you plan to pick up after it? I'm not certain that any societies have done that, but maybe we could take a lead and look at some of it.
Thank you, Alan.
Right, Councillor Rob.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Alan. As you said, it's nearly 10 years since our major flood event. What I'd like to ask you is, how does the cyclone choose its trail? I mean, we've had them down the other coast. We've escaped. So why are we escaping? I mean, you're saying, is it luck? Or is it the topography? With the topography,
it's not luck because it's physics. They are mostly determined by seeking warm water bodies because that feeds them the energy to keep them going, and so they tend to track down coasts. But the vagaries of pressure systems out to sea can then push them inland, and that's when they really do the damage. Particularly, you take a look at places like when they head in over the Carolinas in the United States, they'll go up the east coast from Florida that far and then head inland and not peter out till they've hit maybe 100k inland or more than that. And that's where we run the real risk that a cyclone may travel down that east coast or down our west or up our west coast and stay out to sea or sit over the sea in terms of where its eye sits, but other pressure systems, if it hits a high pressure system further out over the Pacific Ocean, it may well push it inland until it dies. And the problem is you're still in the path until it dies. Mm. So it's got a lot to do with atmospheric physics and the balance of other pressure systems around it, but they are incredibly hard to track. And that's why interested parties tend to get updates on their tracking every hour or two.
Right. Thank you very much, Alan, for your effort. And,
you're welcome.
I hope you enjoyed
it's good to be back and see some friendly faces.
Yes, I was about to say. All right. Thank you, Alan. And Fiona, welcome. 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 You're next.
Am I next?
You are. Yeah.
Right now.
Right now. Yeah.
No hanging about. Okay. I presume this is on. Can you hear me?
We can, yes.
Yeah. Anyway, good morning to your worship and the councillors. No doubt you're all looking forward to your lunch, so I won't be very long, hopefully. I want to speak to you about the basics. The basics are needed whether we're in the present or in the future. And as far as I'm concerned, the underground basics, I think, are very well looked after by our infrastructure people. It's the overground ones that I want to talk to you about. And these are basically the bus shelters. I note that at long last an improvement in the state of the Trafalgar Square shelters has eventuated, due, I think, to a special fund, not our normal fund. One can only hope that the decorative coating will deter the vandals. This council has the responsibility for the repair and cleaning of the said shelters all around the city. The standard of both has been very poor over the years, due in part to underfunding by the council. So I do urge you all that when you do a budget, you perceive that they need enough to do a proper job. You fund them enough, particularly now that the cleaning costs obviously must have increased, and the number of shelters have also increased from about 20 to 40. They are part of the landscape, and they are visible to everyone. And I hope that the decorative coating will be added to other plain glass shelters, which at the moment are only done, the cleaning's only done every 6 months, if it's done at all, which I sometimes doubt. The frequency of the cleaning and the increase in funding has to be looked at, because the funding is not enough now. And now with the extras, I think you must give it some serious thought, because it is a feature of our city. We are a beautiful city, we're a design centre, and to me, these things that are streetscape should be attractive and tidy and clean, and they never have been properly looked after. Now, footpaths. Footpaths are the thing that the whole community, including our ever-increasing visitor population, use on a daily basis. Many of them are in a very bad state and result in 382 falls a year. That's more than one a day, resulting in visits to the ED and other hospital professionals like physios and osteopaths and all these. And also there are a lot of trips that nobody reports. Take Son Parade as an example. This road is now a major highway, has one very narrow footpath, most of which is in a bad state with years of patching. Recently, I walked along from Mitchell Street to Cedar Drive, and I was appalled at the uneven, different levels and sorts of footpaths along the way. People are walking a lot more these days and deserve a decent footpath. It might be the only rated facility they use. And there's also people not only walking, but running along them. Please, councillors, go out and look for yourselves. Son Parade is only one of many that I know need urgent action, and that is why I've opted for option 2 on the long-term plan. Another basic is the Aramo Rail footbridge, a very well-used route, which apparently is only to get a patch-up job, not a renewal, due again to lack of funding. Councillors, give some serious thought to what you fund and how many people benefit. I should like to thank all the council staff I have contact with. They're always as helpful as they can with the constraints that are placed on them and the basics we all need. I don't know how many of you have read all the submissions sent in, but in mine, I thought doing away with the Youth Council a big mistake, and I gave my reasons why. Young people are our future. Their views on what they need and enjoy about our city are very important. The Youth Council helps to inform and form our citizens of the future on how our city operates. It's a great learning opportunity for those who take part in it. Please think again. Take a look at yourselves. How many of you are still young? You might be young at heart, but you're not all young. Enthusiastic and have ideas for the future of this city. The Youth Council did help fill that gap. I wish that my wish list for them included a bowling alley, such a family-friendly activity, a climbing wall, a community room in the city centre in one of the empty buildings where they could meet and talk face-to-face, play music and games, etc., and do things together and be a positive influence in this city, which is what we need. And we do have to consider youth a lot today because there's so many problems with it. And we really should be looking after them better than we do. And other than that, I finished 4 minutes and 32 seconds. But please take on board what I'm saying about funding for these basic things, because I know the funding is not enough. And it certainly won't be now when we've got more to look after. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much, Fiona. You're still welcome to, there's some questions for you. Fiona? Fiona, you need to, you can stand up again. You can't run away just yet.
Sorry?
You can't run away just yet. You've got questions.
I thought that was it done.
So Deputy Mayor Helen has got a question for you.
Thank you, Fiona. The bus shelters, so there's obviously a problem at times where the glass is defaced, and perhaps they are dirty, as in they just need a good wash down. Is that what you're saying?
They are supposed to be cleaned 6 monthly. I'm sorry to say, I don't think that happens. And I have good information to actually tell you that that is the case. And when they're done, they don't have enough money to actually wash them out to get all the muck off. All they can do is go around and remove the rubbish that might be sitting in them, but they're not cleaned. And those plain glass ones are a nightmare because they cost us a fortune to replace the glass, which happens on a fairly regular basis. And as soon as it's in, it gets scratched or broken, and it's been a real disaster. I'm very pleased to see the metal ones that are now appearing down in Castlecliff and Gonville. I think they might be more vandal-proof than the ones we've got at the moment. I don't know why Horizons did glass ones at all, because they just invite people to break them. And I don't know about the coating. I think it's a laminate coating between two bits of glass, so the glass won't be as dangerous as we've had in the past, where the ones at Trafalgar Square were broken for months, and one of the council officers had to go down every week and check that it wasn't a danger to the public. Now, what a waste of time and effort that was. So really, they need looking at all over the city, because lots of people are now using the buses, and we want them to feel they've got somewhere they can go that's going to be nice to sit in.
Fabulous. Thank you, Fiona.
So I'm glad of the improvement down at Trafalgar Square, but I know that's not the normal funding. So it's the normal funding I want to see increased for both things, the footpaths and the bus shelters, because most of us use these things. And we can get tied up with an awful lot of other things that, cost lots of money, but these are basic maintenance things that we should be looking after.
Great. We've got time for one more question, so Councillor Charlotte.
Thank you, and thank you for your submission. So the points that you really hit on in regards to the bus shelters and the footpaths, you seem aware that this comes out of the same infrastructure budget. In your submission, you suggested option 2, which is to significantly increase our infrastructure budget.
Yes.
Yeah, can you speak to that a little bit more? Like, is this something that you have heard within your own community?
I have the information that the budget has stayed the same for years, and it's impossible to do what they're supposed to do with what they've got now. So you can imagine now we've got 40 of them. It's going to be even more difficult. So it's very important that you think about it, and probably more than think about it and talk about it, do something.
Yeah, thank you.
Like giving them some money, because I do find that they're very frustrated with, they bring a budget to you and then you talk about it and then it's just all the same. And it's not good enough, not for the average person in Wanganui who uses these things. This is what I feel very strongly, that it's the majority of people use those things, and they should be in good order before anything else that we would love to have. But that's the way I feel, and I know a lot of people feel the same.
I really appreciate your well thought through and informed submission.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Fiona, and thank you for being a fighter for the ratepayer and interactions you have with many people across council. Appreciate that.
Well, here's hoping it has some effect.
Right. All right, thank you. Welcome. Invite Peter Edmonds to either the podium or the seat. Welcome, Peter. All yours. Yeah.
I hesitate, but I would like to express my thanks for the opportunity to address you today. My name is Peter Edmonds. Initially, I prepared submissions in respect of this on various subjects. I then attended a council meeting on the following Tuesday, I think it was, 7th of May, and I was astonished that the CEO, through Mayor Andrew Tripe, tabled a motion to advance a prior conditional purchase agreement to be unconditionally approved regarding a property purchase that was going to be described as suitable for a covered car park and hotel in the future. This was then detailed of how it was going to be paid. It was going to be paid with a council cash reserve of about $3.5 million and a balance of $400,000 by a commercial loan. The CEO also stated that the return on capital would be around 5% or roughly $190,000 per annum, and it represented a sound investment whether or not a hotel eventuated. Now, I was pretty gobsmacked, and I'm a pretty simple person, but I think a return of around 5% is probably rather less than is commercially prudent, and I challenge that statement that it's a reasonable deal. On the same day, the 7th of May, in the morning, my wife and I secured a term deposit loan with the Bank of New Zealand at 6.1% per annum. Now, I just throw that out as a comparison to what's out there. 5% to my way of thinking is pretty low, and when you consider that by purchasing those properties you do lose the benefit of rates because you don't have that thing. You inherit significant repairs and maintenance, and you have to, of course, insure the assets. So your real return on for 5%, probably around, in real terms, 2%. But I'm not an expert in that. And that's what I think. I also was surprised that it became a decision of urgency, given that this consultation process was in full flight, and I was absolutely surprised that a very reasonable motion was put up to delay a decision, and it was defeated by the councillors, all of whom are sitting here. I just thought that was a fairly shonky way to proceed with a major purchase. And in regard to the suitability of repurposing Wakefield Chambers to an hotel, I think it's a real second-rate decision. I don't think it's a particularly good building. I think it has known seismic issues. It's got sort of a quasi-Art Deco facade, and it's basically on the shaded side of the street, and I don't think it's in a good location, but that's just my opinion, which I'm entitled to, and I take responsibility for that opinion. I think council have an opportunity to secure, re-secure, I don't know how to put it, get back the collegiate motor in and find somewhere else for the student pilots to go and live and crack it on in the short term. It's a good facility. It's not premium in my view, but it puts a lot of beds available at a minimal cost. I struggle with the concept that, in my view, what we need is a visionary approach to the future of the city. I think we really need to up our game as a community and become really ambitious for the future of the city. And to do that, obviously you've got to spend a lot of money, but if you spend a lot of money and you go somewhere, you get a real progress. Currently, and I am very critical of the condition of the Whanganui eyesight. I don't know how many of you people go down there, but it really does need, and it's not a kind thing to say, but it's not unkind either, it needs a jolly good tart-up. It is absolutely hopeless. When you walk in the front door, you're greeted with a picture, I kid you not, of White Island erupting. It has no relevance whatsoever to the city. The eyesight should mirror the aspirations and the best parts of Wanganui, and it should ram them down the throats of visitors constantly. We must do better. There was, in my submission here, or the options, there was a section I'm proposing a crossing from Pakatori to the riverbank. Was there not? I would opine that it would be a really great thing to actually close the road off there and extend Pakatori right out to the riverbank and somehow cobble together a world-class marae to be built on that particular site and filled up with taonga and all sorts of things to really pull people into our city. I would then encourage the development of a pilgrimage, walk with a pack on your back, little boots and sticks, staying from one marae to the other to this incredible destination, Jerusalem. We have it, we're responsible for it, and we've got the only safe Jerusalem with a real relevant, cogent history. We could turn Wanganui into the bee's knees with that really simple, low-cost initiative. And I could go on and on and on. I love this city. This city has to do better for itself, and this business about, maybe we can afford to build a hotel for $55 million, bloody nonsense. You spend $55 million improving the city, and the hotel will come because of it. Thank you very much. I'll take
thank you very much, Peter.
questions.
I appreciate that. We don't really have time for questions, I'm afraid. So,
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. No, it was probably better to hear what you had to say rather than anyway. So,
well, it needs to be said.
Yeah. Thank you very much. All right. Yeah. Welcome, Bill.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, my name's Bill Simmons. I'm going to speak on the idea of curbside recycling in rural areas. I live at Otamatea Rural Lifestyle Zone, and one thing I've learned over the 37 years I've been there is that by and large the people in the zone don't live there because they want urban infrastructure and urban services. They live there because they don't want those services and infrastructure. 6 weeks ago, I became aware that the District Council plans to expand the proposed curbside collection area to include properties in the rural zones, outside of the urban area agreed under the 2022 public consultation process. For the sake of generating an additional $90,000 or so in rates, Council's cherry-picked around 600 mainly rural lifestyle properties outside the urban perimeter for inclusion in the collection area. This apparently covert move has completely blindsided rural folk, those affected anyway. Where was the consultation? It doesn't actually exist. And the 2022 consultation document was explicit in defining the proposed curbside recycling area as residential households in the city urban area and Fordell, Marybank and Mofanau villages. At no point did the community consultation suggest that any rural area would be included. In fact, a news update by Councillor Vincent on 23rd August 2021, which was repeated in a council press release 6 weeks later, specifically ruled out curbside recycling area in rural areas because, quote, the cost would be prohibitive. With regard to curbside recycling in the Wanganui City urban area, Council has been given two clear mandates. The first is the 2022 public consultation round, where 70% of submitters agreed with introducing curbside recycling in the urban area. The second mandate comes from central government regulations yet to be introduced, requiring all councils to provide curbside recycling for households in urban areas of 1,000 people or more. This pragmatic directive follows the principle of fishing where the fish are. But neither of those mandates conveyed any requirement or endorsement for council to rush curbside recycling into rural areas. More cost-effective recycling options actually exist for rural areas. Why did council think that it could change the 2022 proposal so significantly without offering the rural communities affected any opportunity for consultation? The same opportunity that was given to urban communities 2 years beforehand, particularly given that there's no government or local mandate requiring curbside recycling in rural areas at all. Rural areas differ from urban areas in many ways, and they've inherent value sensitivities and risks that don't occur in urban areas. It's therefore neither appropriate nor democratic to apply urban decisions in rural areas without any consultation with the affected communities. The Wanganui District Council's intention to do precisely that is a disappointing breach of its social licence. It could seriously undermine the trust between council and its communities. There is still time to recover the situation. However, if the council cancels the curbside collection plans for rural zones and includes in the LTP recognition that rural curbside collection is a matter that needs careful consideration and consultation with affected communities. This raises a number of questions for elected members. Whether elected members believe that council currently has a mandate to introduce curbside collection in rural areas. Whether elected members are aware that council staff significantly changed the proposed collection area from that approved under the May 2022 decision. Whether any tacit or explicit approval was given for council staff to bring rural areas into the proposed collection area, and whether elected members were aware that council had no clear plans whatsoever to notify the affected rural residents prior to the collection area changes being implemented to include rural areas. The current council proposal to introduce curbside recycling in the rural zones must be annulled pending a full formal consultation with the rural communities affected. Rural curbside collection is a matter of requiring identification and resolution under the LTP to ensure that the views of rural communities are fairly considered under consultation and robust debate to produce sound and durable decisions going forward. Finally, I agree with Councillor Vincent. Taking curbside collection to outlying rural zones where houses are fewer and further apart can only increase the average cost per household of curbside collection across the whole district. Strategically located transportable metal containers are a much better option for rural areas. Now, I've included in my notes for council members a survey results that results from a survey that I did in April after discovering that this proposal was coming up. The interesting statistic, really, I guess, is the fact that 86% of households in my zone don't want curbside collection to come. Simple as that. None of them were aware that it was going to come, so council did a really good job of keeping it quiet. The 86% figure stands in real contrast against the urban figure where 70% wanted curbside collection. And I think what that shows is that there are significant differences between urban and rural zones, especially with regards to the needs, wishes and expectations of residents. It also emphasises the importance of properly considering different zone characteristics and diverse community views before finally making decisions around curbside collection. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Bill. So I'll go to Councillor Charlotte.
Thank you, and thank you for your submission and your consistent engagement with us on this matter. So throughout your engagement and your submission, you do raise a number of good points around consultation, but what I sort of fail to really understand is why you and your neighbours are against curbside recycling in your area. So I do understand that you want more consultation. I hear that, but why are you against curbside recycling?
Okay, there's a whole raft of reasons. As I said right at the start, we don't want the infrastructure and services that, in general, that urban has. It's part of the character of our area that we don't have all that. We go there to actually get away from the type of living, the dependent style of living that exists in an urban area. We're quite self-reliant people out there, you know. We have livestock that can be disturbed or ingest plastic from recycled bins. There'll be bottle noise. It's going to destroy the amenity of the area, to be frank. I've got a property at the end of what used to be a quiet cul-de-sac in Dickens Lane. There's now 9 properties use that cul-de-sac as a launching point for their own properties. There's going to be up to 30 crates down at the end of the road there, and right outside my bedroom window below my house, because all those people are going to put them right there. I'll hear bottles pouring into bottles, and it makes a horrendous noise. The heifers that graze my place will be over the other side of the hill in 2 minutes if they hear that. So there are a whole lot of reasons, Charlotte. I'm sorry, but it's not something that was debated or even signalled by council, and it shouldn't be happening without any consultation. The consultation may eventually produce a big tick for it, but let's give the consultation part a go before we do it.
Thank you.
Okay, we've got time for a quick question from Deputy Mayor Helen.
Thank you. So if the service was free in your area, you would still be objecting?
Yeah, you'll see on my notes, but a lot of the people I spoke to, most of the people I spoke to, the 90% of individuals that I spoke to that didn't want curbside recycling, most of those said that they would not use the service even if it came and they had to pay for it, because it's more convenient to take your bottles and cans and what have you with you when you go into town and drop them off.
Thank you.
Rather than, they didn't want to operate to council's agenda.
Thank you, Bill.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Bill. Look, there's no time for any further questions. But thanks for coming in. Invite Keith. Welcome, Keith.
Thank you. Kia ora koutou, leaders and visionaries. I'm Keith Beautray.
And I'm Robin Paul, also joining Keith as part of our submission this morning. And we both work as volunteer educators and other aspects.
And we would like to acknowledge the presence of our Trust Chair and another member from the Trust, Bill and Alan. So, we're here to help you guys. You've got it wrong, but we can help you get it right, because a draft 10-year plan should be about taking us into the middle of the 21st century. And what you've got when it comes to heritage is what these guys would agree with. It's totally about human cultural heritage, and nature will pay the price, because that's how we have this building with this lovely native timber interior and all the assets of Wanganui based on our natural heritage. So the draft plan is locked into last century thinking of museums, art galleries, paddle steamers, glass blowing, opera houses. All good. But last century, when the museum opened, that was about the time that the huia went extinct. We shot them to put them into the museum. That was our idea of preserving nature. Last century, it made sense to go into the art gallery to see pictures of landscapes, most of them European, because that's where these guys came from. If you went outside the art gallery and looked at the real landscape, you would see the river getting ever muddier, and you would see pillars of smoke in the distance as we almost completely wiped our natural heritage from the real landscape. So looking back, we can thank these leaders for preserving our art and cultural heritage, but surely we lament the wiping of New Zealand's natural heritage landscapes, of forests and living birds. Have we learnt from the past? Is there really nothing in your 10-year plan for our museum, our art gallery of the living natural heritage? Is it all as it is interpreted by humans in the museum and the art gallery? The change we need this century is for our public, particularly children, to learn from eco-sanctuaries about how abundant God's gift to us is, if you want to put it that way, our little bit of Eden, or maybe you see it as 80 million years of evolution that has produced something absolutely unique on this planet. So what's the solution, guys? I know, cost of living crisis, you haven't got any more money. First of all, Bushy Park is a big asset. It attracts tourists, and good high-value tourists from New Zealand and overseas. We can go next level in that attraction with your support. 4-star hotel guests might do an hour in the gallery and an hour in the museum, maybe go for a riverboat ride, but if we want an extra night out of them, then they are very happy, a lot of tourists these days, to spend a half day or a day looking at amazing birds like the saddleback, the nearest relative of the huia that we lost in that generation. So look at it as an asset, back it. Invest a fraction of what you put into cultural heritage into the natural heritage. Maybe a token amount this year because of the financial restraints, but put it in the 10-year plan, have that line, and ramp the support up. Because at the moment, it's 19th century thinking, 20th century thinking. The people who are going to be filling in the gaps along there should have a vision where we work with nature. So in conclusion, we invited the Horizons Council to come out, or thanks to Alan Taylor. They came out at the end of last year and affirmed that they saw Bushy Park as a regional asset as well as a district asset, and they have a continuing small but very effective amount of support for us, and they're actually ramping it up this time according to their plan. So over to you. How do you value natural heritage? Robin is just going to make a few comments about what we did with the 20,000 that we got from the Climate Change Fund, which is pretty much the support we've had.
We're indebted to the council in receiving the 20,000 for the climate change, and my piece here to support Tauparuhi and the trust and educators and young people of our community is to just fill out or give you an idea of the impact that we've been able to have at Tauparuhi with the employment of a part-time educator of 20 hours per week. Currently, our educator Michaela, who puts an apology, who's currently attending the hui at Pukaha, Bushy Forest, Mount Bruce, and mastered at the moment. Anyway, we've had 339 students, 12 educators, and she's visited 320 students in schools, off-site in schools. That is a huge impact that having someone in a paid position is bringing together. As Keith alluded to, in terms of getting the general public and visitors to Tauparuhi, we estimate that we have in excess of 7,000 public visitors. Any day that we go out there as volunteers or educators, there's upwards between 20 and 30 public people from all over the country coming to Bushy Park to view, to walk, to enjoy, to forest bathe. It's incredible to see that public, and obviously our free entry enables those people to come. Some of the things that Michaela has been able to initiate, the Kaitiaki Tauparuhi Environmental Team, a program development of wetland resources material, which is now going to go national. So we will be a model for the whole of the country in terms of how to use wetland resources, wetlands, in terms of a teaching tool with the link in with forest and bird. In terms of leading the climate change initiatives, the council, as I said, the funding, we're looking at replanting the carbon sink forest at Bushy Park. We have retired our last cattle from there, and a major planting which we can use the climate change funding to support that program for. Public planting, which is coming up. Nauraru also will be blessing that site soon and begin planting, and as obviously the students as well that we will be having as they visit. The expansion of portals in terms of what we do here, so we can build on our electronic side, and also the creation of a natural heritage hub with the museum and the art gallery as well to develop that natural heritage. And that is making the success, and we would like to see that success continue. Thank you.
Yeah, maybe you could start with the funding of the rural rubbish collection. I'm also in the same boat. Any questions? Yep.
I apologise. I have a conflict of interest, so I'm withdrawing from the... You sure? Okay. Do I want to say something? Okay. Yeah, thank you for your presentation. I'm glad I don't have that conflict. What would you be looking at and to support the natural heritage? What would you be asking us to consistently contribute year on year to Bushy Park, Tarapuhui?
In our submission to the long-term plan, we suggested $20,000 locked in to support a part-time educator who can help our young people from Kohanga right up to the secondary school students that come out and help with planting and things like that. We've got that for 1 year through the Climate Change Fund. That funding's not secure. Can you secure that funding? A 20k contribution to the management of the forest would also be a very significant boost for us.
So second part, you'd support that funding as opposed to funding for an aviary?
I think that our native species are more important in Wanganui than guinea fowl and Australian cockatoos.
Thank you.
Right, very quick question from Councillor Philippa.
Yeah, thank you, Keith.
Sure.
Robin and your team. Would you mind telling us how much is the Horizons rate? Is it a targeted rate, and possibly how much funding that is? Because with the Wanganui ratepayers obviously already contributing.
Yeah, well, through the Climate Change Fund, but that's about it.
No, through the Horizons rate.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes, yeah. It's just part of the general Horizons rate, I believe.
Not a targeted rate?
No.
And would you mind how much that you are getting from Horizons?
Bill.
It's about 30,000 as I understand it, but I'm new to the role, so I might get that figure wrong. It's, they fund it as part of their program for their what they call heritage. Essentially, they've got a set of sites across the region that they're seeking to protect, to maintain the representative biodiversity of the Horizons region.
Thank you.
So thank you for your time.
Keith.
Thank you for your time, and we just wish you well with your deliberations.
Thank you very much for all the work you do. Yeah. All right. Right. So that is lunch. We're due back at 1 o'clock. Thank you very much. Just a couple of observations. Before we to consider when we're away for lunch is that. Can we just keep questions? I know there's sometimes you do need a bit of context for the questions, but just very brief and then straight into it. And the other one is the are you aware of or whatever of things. It's kind of like it's not really a question. It should be questions of clarification. So if we could just be careful about how we ask the questions.